Welcome again to educator.com, and now we are about to start one of the most important parts of this lesson. This is brainstorming, and then we're getting a topic and we're getting a thesis. This is so important that we're actually going to spend 2 lessons on this. The reason why we're going to spend 2 lessons is if you get a really great thesis, and I'll tell you what that is, you'll be having a very easy paper to write. So, let's go over first the basic structure of a 5-paragraph essay. We have what's called an introduction paragraph. Then we have 3 body paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, and then a closing paragraph at the very end. Now, what goes in this introduction paragraph? Well, first off, in that introduction paragraph, you have to motivate the reader to read, and then you have to introduce what's called a topic, and then that topic, that introduction must have a thesis somewhere. The body paragraphs contain the major points and the minor details that will relate to the topic in the thesis. In future lessons, we're going to go over kind of what those things are. Finally, we have a closing paragraph where you summarize, just like you did before, the major points, and then at some point you restate or paraphrase the thesis. Now, what I said before was that if you have a very big topic and a clear thesis, those body paragraphs will come naturally. Everything I just showed you probably feels a little daunting right now, and you probably feel like that's a lot to do. However, if you do a lot of work first and you really get a thesis down, then this thesis will make all these other things kind of just come naturally, and it'll feel very easy. And you'll find that the writing is very simple. So, now that I've talked about topic and thesis, what do I mean by those terms? Well, topic is just very simple. It just means what the essay is about. So the topic can be actually anything under the sun, or above the sun, or in space. It can be anything at all. You can have the topic be marine mammals, you can have the topic be dinosaurs, you can have the topic be, books, you can have the topic be anything. The topic is generally very broad, and we narrow it down, and then we eventually get to what's called a thesis. The thesis is a central statement in one sentence that the entire paper is about. That's all it is. You are getting down the thesis to you're going to say in one sentence what the rest of the paper is going to be about. And once you do that, you know what shouldn't be in your paper, and that makes things easier. Now, how do you get to a thesis? Well, what you do is you do something called brainstorming, and then you pick a topic. Then once you form that topic, you form a couple interrogative questions: the who, the what, the why, the when, the where. And then once you answer some of those questions, you get a rough idea for the thesis, and you eventually refine it until it's a good thesis, and then you start writing. So, brainstorming, what is it? What do I mean? Brainstorming is a purely right brain exercise. In fact, if you've been doing your journal entries, and I know you have, you've in a way already been doing some brainstorming. And one of the most important things with right brain is that you write and you do not edit. You remember, if you hear that be quiet statement, you just keep your hand moving. Now, brainstorming, you don't actually have to have anything on the page. The best way to brainstorm, one of the most popular ways, especially if you're a visual, artistic person, is what's called the bubble method. In the bubble method, you just write down something that you think about in a bubble. And I'm going to write, dinosaurs. And I'm just going to put dinos for short. And then you start thinking about dinosaurs, and you think, oh, well, there are velociraptors. I'm going to put VR for velociraptors. And then you just kind of think about, well, what else about dinosaurs? Well, there's a movie called Jurassic Park, JP, which had velociraptors in it, so I can connect those 2 things. And you can just kind of expand and expand out, and you'll just come up with all kinds of ideas and all kinds of things that are connected. But make sure that you do not stop your hand from moving, even when you're starting to look and you think this idea is dumb. Who cares if it's dumb? You're going to edit later and decide things. Let's do a much cleaner example. The first thing I've thought about and brainstormed was whales. I got whales right here. Well, let's think about whales for a bit. What kinds of things are going to come up when I think about whales? Well, whales live in the ocean. And what kinds of oceans are there? Well, we got the Pacific and we got the Atlantic Ocean. What kinds of whales are there? Well, there's a humpback whale, there's an orca, and we can keep expanding. What type of animals are whales? Well, they're marine mammals. Are there other examples of marine mammals? You bet. And so as you can see, I'm not editing here. I don't know what my topic's going to be. I don't know what my thesis is going to be yet. I'm just drawing circles, writing words, and connecting ideas together. And what I call that is kind of the explosion of ideas. And from that explosion of ideas, we're going to get potential topics. So here they are, in no particular order, because I'm right brain, I'm not left brain. We got otters, marine mammals, whales, the ocean, Moby Dick, orcas, blue whales, dolphins, and sharks. Pretty random list, right? Well, let's figure out what we're going to talk about. So, let's ask some questions here. I'm going to go with marine mammals, and then I'm going to ask interrogative questions to form a thesis. So, who likes marine mammals? What kinds of marine mammals are there? Why do marine mammals breathe air? Where do marine mammals live? When do marine mammals eat? And how do marine mammals migrate? So I've just given you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 interrogative questions. Who, what, why, where, when, and how. And I've asked them about my topic, marine mammals. So, keep in mind that you do not have to answer all of these questions if it doesn't suit you. And if you don't know the answer, well, that means that there's something that maybe you need to go research. And if you research something, you might find something interesting. And go ahead, and you can ask and answer a question more than once. I don't have to ask who likes marine mammals. I could have asked what kinds of marine mammals are there, what kinds of foods do they eat, and what kinds of plants do they live in. Why do marine mammals breathe air? Okay, I could have asked 2 why questions. I could have asked 6 why questions. It doesn't really matter. You can form an essay based on just 5 what questions or 4 where questions. It really doesn't matter which questions you ask, just as long as you know that all 6 there are available to ask. So, let's get an example of what. What kinds of marine mammals are there? Okay, well, let's answer that question. We got dolphins, otters, whales, orcas, and Moby Dick. And I'm going to form a fairly rough thesis here. Dolphins, otters, whales, orcas, and Moby Dick are all types of marine mammals. So there's an example of a very rough thesis. And I'd like you to look at that and tell me if you think that's a good thesis yet. How do we know? Well, a good thesis must be short. It must clearly state the topic in the thesis, not just in the introduction paragraph, it has to be said in the thesis too. Also, it has to help the reader predict. What do I mean by prediction? Well, a reader should read your thesis and they should already be able to kind of guess what your major points are going to be. And if they don't know exactly what your major points are going to be, they should at least predict what kinds of major points you're going to be using. So, let's go ahead and go over this for those requirements. Short, prediction, and topic. Dolphins, whales, otters, orcas, and Moby Dicks are all types of marine mammals. Well, what's a marine mammal? That was my topic, right? Good. So it does state the topic. Is this going to help you predict? What kinds of things am I going to be talking about for the rest of the essay? Dolphins, otters, whales, orcas, and Moby Dick. Is it short? Is it concise? I think this is a little too much, and we need to kind of cut some things out and choose carefully what we're going to write the essay about now instead of later when we're already written 5 pages. So let's forget Moby Dick and let's forget a couple other ones and let's just go dolphins, otters, and whales are all types of marine mammals. Is that shorter? Yes. Can I write 3 paragraphs on this essay? Absolutely. I can write 1 paragraph about dolphins, another about otters, and a third about whales. So do you know exactly what's coming next? You bet you do. this is a good thesis right here. Now, there is another type of thesis other than just what I've just gone over. What I'm going to show you is kind of a thesis that's not just descriptive, where I'm just talking about things and describing them, but one that actually gives an opinion or an argument. Later, much later in this course, we're going to go into much greater detail about arguments and opinions and that kind of writing. But for now, I just want you to be aware what it is, so I'm going to go over it very briefly. One type of thesis will give an opinion, and then it'll give ideas and reasons or arguments about why these are good beliefs, opinions, or ideas. And so let's go ahead and just quickly pretend like we did a lot of brainstorming, and this is what we come up with. My topic is going to be voting age. My question is, should the voting age be lowered to 17? My answer is a very simple yes. So my thesis will look like this. Yes, the voting age should be lowered to 17. Good. So, do you got my topic? You bet. Is it short? Yes. Is it helping you predict? Not so much. So, in order to get kind of other things out of this, to get those details that I'm going to put in there to help the reader predict, let's just go ahead and ask those interrogative questions. And I got a whole long list here. Who is voting now? What evidence supports yes? Why are only 18 plus allowed to vote? Where do countries allow 17-year-olds to vote? When do people care about elections? How will 17-year-old vote benefit the country? So I've asked exactly one, who, what, why, where, when, and how. But as you know, I don't have to ask exactly one of each of these questions. So maybe I want to ask, why do only 18-year-olds vote? What is the difference between 18 and 17? When did we decide that 18 plus was the right age? Who decides what age? Why do 17-year-olds need to vote? Okay, you notice that there's a couple here that I'm kind of parsing out. I'm kind of concentrating on what and why. But another great thing is to talk about how. How will 17-year-olds choose candidates? Maybe that's an important question to talk about. How will it affect our election process? Another good question to talk about. So, now that I've kind of done all those questions, I would answer those questions, and I would kind of pick which reasons I really, really like that would support my yes answer to 17-year-olds should vote, and I will write a thesis. 17 is a good age to vote because of the popularity of the internet. There is little difference between 18 and 17, and it will force politicians to pay attention to education. Okay, so, do I have my topic? Yes. Am I helping you predict? Can you guess what's going to come next? Absolutely. Is it short? It's longer. It could be shorter, and I probably could find ways to make this a shorter sentence, a shorter thesis. But right now, you have to understand that sometimes when we have argumentative essays, the theses are going to look a little bit longer than you might think they should. So, let's think about the assignment from last week and last lesson. How about those journal entries? You've been writing them, right? Have you read over them? Please do. So, have you noticed any ideas? Anything that could be a topic? Anything that you really like writing about? Do you have any opinions about what's good or bad or right or wrong or how things should be? Don't be afraid to write about those too. Most importantly, do you have a subject that keeps coming up and up again? How about the books? What do you like about the book so far? What's interesting? What's fun? And who's your favorite character? Any particular character that you love and you think is amazing? And do you find anything strange or interesting about these stories so far? Go ahead and make sure that you write about those in your journal entries. Next, we're going to be getting a topic and getting a thesis. Do a brainstorm, pick a topic, form questions, and then form a rough idea for a thesis. Not a final thesis, a very rough one. Do that 3 times. And finally, don't forget to keep reading the books. These books are good for you, and these books are fun. There's what you have to read. Not asking for a written response this time because you have so much to write already. So just go ahead and go nuts with that, have fun, and keep using educator.com.